hundreds of feet beneath the surface, in the hidden world beneath the waves. A small crew endures months sealed inside steel. Cut off from sunlight, they grow sleep-deprived and are forced into silence as machinery vibrates endlessly. Living space shrinks to a coffin-sized bunk, shared by strangers on rotating shifts, with every breath cycled stale through the same recycled air. This is not science fiction. It is the brutal truth of life inside a nuclear submarine, where a single error could mean disaster for everyone on board. But what does it really take to survive down here? And why do sailors choose this? The answers begin where daylight vanishes. At depths surpassing 1,000 feet, the outside world is nothing but crushing darkness and relentless pressure. Inside the steel hull, the atmosphere is thick with the constant drone of pumps, fans, and the low rumble of the nuclear reactor. Every breath is drawn from air that has been filtered, scrubbed, and recycled through the same machinery for weeks. The scent is unmistakable: metal, ozone, and something faintly chemical. There is no sunrise or sunset, only the steady glow of fluorescent bulbs overhead, set to mimic a day that never truly arrives. Clocks tick, but time feels different when hours and days blur under artificial light. The submarine's nuclear heart beats without pause, generating power for months on end. Modern reactors can run for decades without refueling, making it possible for the crew to stay submerged for 90 days or more. The hull is engineered not for comfort, but to withstand the ocean's relentless pressure, a barrier between life and instant disaster. Passageways are narrow, every compartment filled with equipment, cables, and pipes. There is no wasted space, no room for softness. The hum of the reactor and the vibration of machinery seep into bones and dreams, a reminder that survival depends on systems running perfectly every minute of every day. Down here, the outside world is a distant memory. The submarine is a sealed world, suspended in the deep, where endurance is measured by the patience of steel and the stamina of those who call it home. Bunks are stacked 3 high, pressed so close together that a sailor cannot sit up straight. Each space is barely longer than a body, with a thin curtain for privacy and a storage bin underneath that holds everything a submariner owns for months at sea. Personal belongings must fit into a space no bigger than a school backpack. For junior crew, the berthing area feels less like a bedroom and more like an industrial shelf, cold, metallic, and always crowded. Hot racking is standard. 3 sailors share 2 bunks, rotating through them as shifts change. When one sailor's watch ends, he climbs into a bed still warm from the last occupant. His only comfort, the knowledge that in 6 hours, he will be back on duty. The air in the berthing space is thick with recycled breath and the faint scent of machinery. Silence is enforced. Someone is always sleeping, so conversations are hushed, and laughter is stifled behind curtains. The schedule is relentless. On most boats, the day is carved into 18-hour cycles, 6 hours on watch, 12 hours off. But those 12 hours are not free. Off-duty time fills with maintenance, system checks, cleaning, and study. The hunt for dolphins, the coveted pin that marks a fully qualified submariner, demands constant review of emergency procedures, propulsion diagrams, and reactor protocols. Drills can sound at any moment. Fire, flood, missile emergency, reactor casualty. Each one is a test. Muscle memory takes over, forged by repetition and the knowledge that mistakes have no margin for correction at depth. Retired submariner. A remembers counting the hours by the drills, not the clocks. You learn to move in silence, to claim your 6 hours of sleep like treasure, and to trust the man above and below you in the rack. There is no room for ego. Only routine, discipline, and the hope that the next alarm is just a drill. Fresh water is precious on a nuclear submarine. Every drop comes from desalination systems that work around the clock, but the supply is never enough for comfort. Showers are limited to 3 minutes, and sometimes days pass before anyone can wash at all. Crew members ration soap and shampoo, learning to get clean with as little water as possible. Laundry is its own challenge. 1 or 2 machines must serve the entire crew for months. Clean uniforms become a form of currency, traded or bartered for favors and chores. Socks and underwear are worn again and again, carefully rotated and sometimes washed by hand in a sink. Waste is another reality that shapes daily life. Every flush and every drain is accounted for, with complex systems storing sewage and gray water in sealed tanks until the submarine surfaces. A single mistake with waste handling can threaten the overall safety of the boat. Even food is rationed by space. Hundreds of pounds of supplies are packed into every compartment, but fresh fruit and vegetables vanish within the first weeks. Small victories, a hot shower, a clean shirt, a favorite meal, become rare luxuries that carry more weight than anyone expects. Retired submariner B remembers the silence that stretched for weeks beneath the waves. Letters from home arrived late, if at all. Sometimes a birthday greeting landed in his hands long after the candles had been blown out. The only link to the surface was a trickle of messages relayed through extremely low-frequency signals. These messages were short, impersonal, and always one way. There was no chance to reply, no way to ask questions, no comfort in knowing if loved ones were truly all right. To send a message back required surfacing or deploying a buoy, a risk that could compromise the boat's position and mission. So most days, the world above might as well have been another planet. The cost of this isolation was measured in missed milestones. Children's first steps, funerals, anniversaries. Entire seasons passing unseen. When the boat finally returned to port, the shock of reintegration hit hard. News poured in. Family illnesses, new babies, world events, all compressed into a single, overwhelming moment. Submariner B describes the feeling as stepping into a life that had moved on without him, forced to catch up in a matter of hours. The emotional strain of this disconnect lingers long after the hatches close behind him. Aboard a nuclear submarine, the mind is tested as much as the body. Clinical psychologists who study extreme environments describe how the brain adapts when sunlight, privacy, and normal routines vanish for months at a time. Time itself becomes slippery, days and nights blur, and memories of surface life fade into the background noise of machinery. Under these conditions, the crew relies on a set of unwritten rules to keep the peace and preserve sanity. Conflict is diffused before it can grow. Arguments are set aside, sometimes with a nod or a quiet joke, because there is simply nowhere to go and no one else to turn to. Humor becomes a lifeline. Inside jokes, running gags, and playful nicknames help release tension, giving everyone a moment to breathe. Rituals like shared meals or small celebrations anchor the crew to something familiar even as the world outside disappears. Peer monitoring is constant but subtle. Sailors watch for signs of withdrawal or distress, ready to step in before a bad day turns into a crisis. Mental health experts have found that crews who practice mindfulness, even informally, show better adaptation and fewer breakdowns. In this sealed world, survival depends not just on technical skill, but on the invisible systems of support and understanding that hold the crew together. Every moment beneath the ocean, survival hangs on a knife's edge. The nuclear reactor, humming quietly in the heart of the boat, can power a city, but a single error, a coolant leak or a control failure, can trigger a reactor scram and leave the crew fighting to keep the submarine alive. The pressure hull, a barrier just inches thick, stands between the crew and instant death. If a weld fails at depth, the ocean rushes in at over 1,000 pounds per square inch, collapsing steel in milliseconds. Torpedoes and missiles, stored just feet from living quarters, carry risks of their own. Any malfunction is catastrophic. Naval historian Dr. Ellis describes how the loss of USS Thresher in 1963, and later the Scorpion, left a permanent scar on submarine culture. Cold War veterans recall the relentless drills, the constant vigilance, and the knowledge that sub-safe protocols, born from tragedy, are all that stand between them and disaster. Down here, safety is not a guarantee. It is a daily battle, fought with discipline, memory, and trust. Earning the Dolphin's pin is more than a test of technical skill. It is a rite of passage. The ceremony is simple, but the meaning runs deep. When a sailor receives their dolphins, they join a brotherhood built on trust and competence. The crew gathers, often in silence, to watch as the pin is pressed into a uniform. It is a moment that says, "You are one of us, and we trust you with our lives." Traditions fill the long months. Games, competitions, and shared jokes break the monotony and forge connection. Every submariner volunteers for this life, knowing the risks and the weight of the mission. They serve not for recognition, but because they believe in the silent shield they provide, standing watch in the deep for those who may never know their names. Every day, over 14,000 sailors worldwide operate in nuclear submarines, unseen, uncelebrated, and carrying enormous risk. Their endurance and sacrifice remain vital to global security, even as technology advances. The silence below still defends the world above. Remember what is hidden, because our safety depends on it.